The scripture today is Proverbs 27:17. Iron sharpens iron. So one man, we say one person, sharpens another. What do you think that means? I think that there's a lot of emphasis on figuring your stuff out. I think there's a lot of emphasis on I'm going to go off to the mountaintop or out into the wilderness. I'm going to sit and read this book on my own. And you can grow in certain ways doing that. But at the end of the day, when I think about my life, the times that I have really grown are the times when I have grown in the context of other people, when someone has come along and taught me something, whether they taught me what to do or what not to do, whether I wanted them in my life or I really didn't. I am me, not just because I'm a child of God, that's important, but I am me because of the people who helped me work out my relationship with God. And like I said, that happens whether you like it or not. That happens whether you think you're ready for it or not. When I was 18, 19 years old, I was elected a youth leader in my church. And most of you know that story. And it meant a lot of stuff. It meant I got to go and plan retreats all over the country, and that was really cool. But the other thing that it meant is they flew me all over the place, all year long, to go and speak to churches about the power of youth movement and about getting people excited about going to these retreats. Yeah, I was a little bit of a shill for that. You know, I was an ad. But it was amazing to get to go and work with teens all over the country, to get to speak to groups all over the place. And I have to say, it helped me figure out the direction for the rest of my life. And I also have to say, it was an incredible ego thing to be 18, 19 years old with your own corporate card that you could buy plane tickets with. I felt like a jet setter. You know, I was sitting there reading, the magazines that I saw business people reading. I didn't know what anything was about, but I was reading it because you put on the act. And I loved it, and I felt big, and I felt important. And I'd go to an airport, and there'd be a guy with a sign sometimes, and I felt like a big shot. And I felt like such a big shot that I decided to tell big shot stories. At one point, I was getting ready to fly to Kansas City, Missouri. I flew there a lot for obvious reasons. And I discovered that I was going to have a layover at O'Hare Airport. Now, O'Hare Airport, world-renowned for being fast, efficient, right? I'd never been there before for whatever reason, but what I knew is that every business traveler, big person I ever knew, had a terrible O'Hare Airport story. And it felt like a rite of passage, like I wasn't really in the cool club until I had one. And so I was talking to a bunch of people, and I knew about this trip, and I played it like a card. I'm going to O'Hare Airport. I'm going to be lucky to get out of there alive. I'm going to O'Hare Airport. I don't even know what's going to happen, right, guys? And, hoping for the knowing nod and hearing the story from somebody else. But the thing that occurs to me now is I was dumb. But also that you get exactly what you put out. We know this. There's, on a certain level, on a cosmic level, there are no surprises. You get exactly what you that you're ready for, and I had made myself ready for that story that happened. And this was February, and it was cold, and a lot of airports in the country were snowed in, and bam! It felt like I was going to live at O'Hare International Airport for a while. Everything was delayed. The board was lit up with delayed, and I realized that I had done this to myself, and I just had to laugh. Boy, I'm going to have a good story to tell this time. And I called my folks, and I told them I wasn't dead. It was going to be okay, but I was going to just live in Chicago for a while. And I called the people who were supposed to pick me up at Kansas City International Airport, and I said, I don't know when I'm going to get to fly in. And they said, I'll tell you what. We're not going to be there at the airport because it's late. Whenever you get there, just take a cab. And I said, oh, sure, take a cab. I'd never been in a cab before. I'm from St. Pete. I'd never been in a cab before. But on the phone, oh, no problem. Cab, yeah, cab. I'm in a cab right now, whatever. There's no cell phones. But I just decided, okay, I can do this. Freaked out. Didn't know really what to do, but all the other business travelers around were doing their thing. And so flew from O'Hare to Kansas City in the snow, and it seemed like a longer flight than it needed to be because it was scary, and we got there, and it was cold, and it was snowing, and I figured out where my bag was, and I got to the place where you get a cab, and a cabbie pulled up, and I said, I'm going to Unity Village. Unity Village is like 45 minutes from the airport on a clear day. And the first cabbie said, I'm not going that far. I said, well, I am. And he left. Because the thing is, the universe has something in mind for you. God has a story that you're part of, and it's going to happen. And so another cabbie pulled up, and he didn't seem pleased to see me. And I told him where I was going, and he kind of looked off into the middle distance for a while. I like to think he was talking to spirit, but I don't know. And he said, hop in. And I sat in the front. You're not supposed to sit in the front. I know that in the movies you sit in the back. I don't know. I was nervous. I sat next to him. And we drove, and he didn't say anything for a while. And I realized that no one on earth knew where I was. And I started to get scared, and the snow was blowing, and it was like in a video game, and I didn't know what was going on. And I decided that I would start talking to him because I was scared. And I talked about this girl I knew back home who I would later marry, and how I used to like to travel, and maybe not so much now, not just because of the scary cab, but also because I had something to go home to. I never had that before. And I started talking about church because I thought maybe if he knows I'm a church kid, he won't murder me. And we talked, and he asked me about God. And he asked me about how love works. And you see, I had already been through my chaplain training, my certified instructor program and all that. So I knew what to say. And I started saying it. And I realized about halfway through the conversation, I wasn't just saying it because I was scared or because I was supposed to or because anything else. I realized that something changed between the two of us. And it became that thing that I had been trained for. And it became that thing that I think I had been born for. It's the thing that I'm here to do. And something magical happened. And he was talking to me about a relationship that he had just gotten done with. And he was sad. And I in my own way, I understood. And we talked about how God works and what love ought to be versus what it sometimes is. And the whole thing. And we talked. And by the end of it, it was like prayer time. And it felt right. And we drove up to the Unity Village motel. Imagine an old-style motel, kind of a Norman Bates sort of situation. And it was the middle of the night, and I had been told on the phone that the door to my room would just be unlocked. That's how old the hotel was. Just go in, see you in the morning kind of a thing. So we got there, and I said, how much do I owe you? Knowing that it would be a lot. And he said, nothing. He said, but will you pray with me? So I did. And I got ready to get out of the car, and he said, I want to show you something. And he reached over in front of me and opened the glove compartment. And in the glove compartment was a very big, very scary gun. He said, I want you to know that earlier today I had decided that I was going to do some bad things today, that I was kind of full of life. And I've decided that it would be better for me to just get some help. And yeah, I paused about that long. And I said, okay. And his name was on the cab license right there. And I said his name, and I said, now we have prayed together. We have spoken the word to God. Don't make me a liar. And I said his name to him again. I said, I'm going to be watching the news. You be good. We made a deal today. And I left. Maybe I should have called the cops. I don't know. I was in a million different places, and I laid on my bed in the hotel room with all my clothes on. I just stared at the ceiling for a long time, and I thought about what happened. And the next day was Sunday, Unity Village Chapel, a lot of people there, and he was one of them. Something changed that day. Did I want to be there? No. No. Not at all. But that's kind of the point. You see, we're at that point in the hero's story where the hero leaves what is boring and known and goes out into the unknown, and it is challenging. When you think about it, when you start the movie, everything was okay before. Harry Potter living under the stairs, not comfortable, but okay. Luke Skywalker out on the moisture farm, not awesome, but okay. Here we go. Bilbo Baggins living in the Shire. everything's okay. There we go. Check. And the universe will pull you into something more. And I don't know about you, but I have absolutely been in those situations where I am pulled into something bigger and I don't want it. Or I don't think I do. But you can't go back because you can't grow back. You can't go back to the way that you used to be as hard as you try. And I don't know about you, but I've had situations in my life where I tried to ungrow, doesn't work. We could talk a lot about the meaning of life and why we're here and all that, and that's a complicated conversation. But at the end of the day, you're here to grow. Details aside, you're here to grow. And some people say, okay, well then I think I'll do that. And I say, that's nice, but you don't have a choice. That's like saying you're here to breathe, you're gonna. Growth is happening. You have no say in the matter. The say you have is, you know what, I've decided I'm going to pay attention to the growth process. That's really it. You're going to grow. It is going to happen, so be about it and decide. Because the thing that we learn in the hero story is when they step out into that world, God gives them allies. Think about the stories that you know. Once again, Star Wars, Harry Potter, any story, any Western, all of a sudden the whole team is there and Yul Brynner's ready to help you and all of that stuff. Yeah, you know the movie. But anyway, it's every story. When you step out, life will remind you that the people who are in your life, the ones you like and the ones you cannot stand, because there's no accidents in the universe, the people in your life are there to learn from you and to teach you. You know this. But when you own it, something happens. And the thing that happens is you learn who you are. If you hand me a hammer, and I've never seen one before, pretend, and I say, what is this? And you say, well, you see, it's made out of chrome vanadium steel. And it's got a rubber handle. And it's about yay long. And I bought it at Lowe's for $15. Okay, great. And it was made in China. Okay, great. And this is how old it is. Okay, great. You can get to the place where you tell me every molecule of that, where I understand everything about it, but you haven't told me anything. I can learn everything about it and still know nothing until I ask this question: what's it for? What do you do with it? It's just this weird heavy thing. Until I realize that hammer is a verb too. What's it for? It's to build houses. It's to fix things. Here's what you do with it. Everything is like everything. You don't know what a thing is until you know what you do with it, until you put it into context of action. Everything is like everything. And so I'm here to tell you that your name is a verb. It really is. Because if I say, who are you? And you say, well, I'm made out of skin and bone and hair and all of that kind of thing. And here's how my circulatory system works. Please don't tell me how your circulatory system works. I don't have that kind of time. But you know what I mean? You can tell me all of the physicalities of you. You can say, I'm from such and such a place, and my parents are these people, and this is the house, and it's yellow, or whatever. You can tell me all of that information. You can even go to a spiritual place and say, I am a child of God, and this physicality of me is just like the outfit that I wear, and there's something bigger and more awesome within me, and that's beautiful. I'm glad you know that. But you get to the place where it's like, so what? I don't know you until I know what you do. I don't know you. You don't know me until we talk about the action that we take. We talk about the way that we relate to the people that you love. Your name is a verb. You know the story of when Jesus was talking to the disciples. You know it so well, I'll tell you the quick version. Jesus says, who do those people over there say I am? You know the one? And the disciples say, well, facts and figures. They talk about vital statistics, and you're a Capricorn or whatever, and you weigh this amount. You like long walks on the beach. That whole thing. And Jesus says, it's a paraphrase. And Jesus says, who do you say I am? You know the story, right? Peter, the disciple who represents faith, says, I say that you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And we talk about that story to illustrate how faith works. Faith looks past appearances. But it's not just that Peter, the disciple who represents faith, looks past the way things look. It's not just that he knows that Jesus is the Christ. He knows that the Christ is a verb. He says, you are the Son of the living God. In other words, you do this thing. And I know you not just by who you are, but by what you do, by how you make me feel, by the way that you change the world. That's how people know who we are, by what we do. So what will we do? When you recognize that you are here to be a part of that beautiful process, to do something, you realize that you're here to serve God. Why am I here? I'm here to serve God. Great. Where is that? You know the joke. I'll tell the quick version. 3 people, I won't even mention their religious affiliations because it's not the point. 3 people of various religious persuasions find a bag of money. You know the story? And the first one says, we really ought to give this to God somehow. And they say, okay, well, we'll draw a circle on the ground and we'll throw the money up in the air, and whatever lands outside the circle, we'll donate. And whatever lands inside the circle, we'll take. And the second person says, okay, I like the idea, but we'll do it the other way. We'll throw it up, and whatever lands inside the circle, we'll donate. Whatever lands outside the circle, we keep. And then the third person says, I got a better idea. We throw the money up in the air, and whatever God wants, he keeps. The reason that's a funny or marginally funny story is because it bases on a silly idea that God is up in the sky somewhere. And we know better. Okay, so if I serve God, it's not about that. My prayer is no longer throwing pennies up at God's window, hoping that he's looking. I know better. But so where do I serve God? And the answer is I serve God by serving his children. That's how this works. I serve God by finding my tribe. I serve God by living in the context of a family. That's how this works. And you know that? You know that it is a biological, psychological, spiritual imperative? You know that human beings are born without the kind of instincts that other animals have. Other animals are capable of doing their own thing pretty fast, and we need each other. We grow up in the context of other people. Last week, we talked about the idea that you still go to the movies even though your Blu-ray player is better quality and no one's on their cell phone and you can make your own popcorn. We talked about all that. We need each other. That's why we go to church. And church doesn't just happen in this room, although I'm so grateful for what happens in this room. You know that every week at the end of the service, right before we all go home, there's a prayer on the screen. And I always say something about how we pray this together. And the power isn't just that we've made a covenant with God. The power is that we spoke the word together. We say, God, I'm ready for change. My heart is open. I'm not afraid anymore. My life is in peace and on purpose. And we make that commitment together. That's the power. So when you're on the verge of something, when you're getting into the scary taxi cab of life, you remember that you're not alone. But that's not just where church happens. Church happens when we cook something for Ronald McDonald House, when we swing a hammer at Habitat for Humanity. Church happened last week in here and then really happened outside too when Miss Ann showed everybody how to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches without them getting soggy. That's church because that's family. And that means everything. You're not alone in this. You know, in the Bible, we have Jesus as the example of what it's like when you live this life, when you know who you are, when you live as a child of God, and that's beautiful, but that's not always helpful. When there's a cooking show, it's not helpful to just see the finished souffle, you know? We also have the disciples who show us what it's like when it's in process, when you don't get it, when you don't know all the answers. And the disciples say, Jesus, how does it work? And Jesus says, okay, guys, here's how. You need both. And in the same way, I can tell you all day long, you know what, you're a child of God. You've got beauty and perfection and wisdom and knowledge and everything inside of you. And you go, yeah, awesome. I also have a mortgage. And I have doubts. And I have a weird family. And there's people at work I can't handle. Great that I'm the child of God. Great, I've got this I am in me. I feel worse because I don't know how to live that. And that's why it's beautiful to know that you also have the process. You have the Christ, the I am inside of you, and you have disciples outside of you all around you, and you're one too. Live like a disciple. Decide that you're here to grow and change, and that means getting over the idea that life is a competition. I know there's a race going on outside. I can hear it. But that's not life. That's pretend. The truth is that we are all in this together. And if this thing is going to work for any of us, it has got to work for all of us. It means getting done with the idea that for me to do good, somebody else has to do bad. For me to have money, it means somebody else has to be poor. For me to succeed, somebody else has to fail. That is an idea that is based on an idea of finite good, of a small God. And if I believe in that kind of competition, I will never prosper. I will never be happy until I remember that God is, period. That the universe takes care of its own, that we exist in infinity. And when I know that, something changes. It means I really know that we're all in this together. If a tree falls in the woods and nobody's there to hear it, who cares? Things happen in the context of other people. We work out our divinity in the context of other people. You exist in the idea that we are all different, and that's what makes it amazing. We've been telling different versions of the hero's story all along, and it's beautiful that there's different versions because they appeal to different people in different places. The meaning comes out for you in a way that doesn't come out for me. Differences are important. So find different people. Love the differences. Give thanks for the differences. And learn how to forgive people for being different than you. Can you do that? Oh, can you? Can you do it? I forgive you for not responding the way that I respond. I forgive you for loading the dishwasher in that psychotic way. Who does that? I forgive you for the way you park your car in the garage or the way you vote or the whatever. I forgive you because I recognize that this is a group effort. And you know, the I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever you say bounces off me and sticks to you. You know that you are a mirror. That everybody else is a mirror. You've learned this one before. Life has taught all of us this before. And so I'll say it in a different way. What somebody is doing, whether it inspires you or disturbs you, what somebody is doing, if it has a foothold in you at all, it means you've got something in common with it. Think about it. If you didn't notice it, if they did something and you didn't have something in you that was reflecting, then you wouldn't know it. It'd be like they were speaking another language. It would just go by. But the fact that somebody does something that inspires you or disturbs you or anything in between, the fact that somebody does something that you notice means that it points to a growing place in you. That person is a mirror. You've heard that before. So let's turn that around and recognize that you're a mirror too. There are some people that do not get you. Can that be okay with you? I mean, there are people who didn't get Jesus. Maybe we can let ourselves off the hook. There are people who don't get you. You're a mirror for something they're working on. I mean, do your best. But at the end of the day, their thing is about them. Your job is to clean the mirror. To be the best mirror you can be. Jesus said, they who have seen me have seen the Father. So let our prayer be, Father, let me magnify your presence. When they look at me, let me show something better. Let me inspire by what I do, not by what I say anymore. Let me try. When I watch the news, it's so easy to go, oh, those people over there. Those people who live differently, love differently, think differently, vote differently, spend differently. Those people over there, there's so much negativity on the news. I just don't handle it. Well, when I say that, am I helping there be more or less negativity? When you realize that the people on the news are children of God like you, when you realize that the people that you think about and talk about and are forced into because of the media or whatever, when you realize that the people you see are us. There's no them anymore. There's just us. And that's the justice of the whole thing, is that we're all in this together, is realizing that you are me. No matter what crazy thing you're doing, no matter what crazy thing I'm doing, we're all in the cab together. Let's do something different about it. Let's realize that there's no way of the world. There's just what we agree on. So let's agree to live the best we can. Your name is a verb. It's not just what you're made out of anymore. It's what you do. Your name is a verb. It's not you by yourself. It's you in the context of this family. Your name is a verb. Together, let us not just be. Let us show what life looks like, what love looks like, what truth looks like. God, when they see me, let them know what freedom looks like. Because, after all, freedom is a choice. Thank you very much.